A mother just told another mom, if you force your daughter to have this baby, I will personally drop it off at a fire station. Yeah, you heard that right. A fire station. And trust me, when you hear the full context, you might actually be on her side. But that's just story number one, because today we've got 5 absolutely unhinged family meltdowns that will make your Thanksgiving drama look like a casual Sunday brunch. We're talking about disease-ridden relatives trying to crash dinner parties, families charging a $100 cover fee for potluck, jealous stepmoms bullying 4-year-olds over photographs, and a wife who literally tried to sabotage her own son's wedding out of pure spite. I'm not exaggerating. These stories are wild. Hey everyone, welcome back to AITAH Chronicles. I'm your host, and if you're new here, this is where we dive deep into the most dramatic, jaw-dropping, and sometimes absolutely insane Am I the Asshole stories from Reddit. We're on a mission to hit 10K subscribers, and honestly, with stories like today's, we're getting there fast, but I need your help. So smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a comment telling me which story you think is the most unhinged. All right, let's not waste any time because story number 1 involves a pregnant 16-year-old, a screaming grandmother-to-be, and one mother who drew the most controversial line in the sand you've ever heard. Let's get into it. Am I the asshole for telling my son's pregnant girlfriend's mom that I will give up her baby if their daughter does not herself? All right, folks, buckle up because this Am I the Asshole post is about to take us on an absolute roller coaster of emotions, drama, and what I can only describe as one of the most intense phone calls in parenting history. We've got teen pregnancy, family drama, conflicting values, and honestly, the kind of situation that makes you want to just pause and go, wait, what? Every few seconds. This is the kind of story that makes you realize that real life is messier than any TV drama could ever be. So grab your snacks, get comfortable, and let's dive into this absolute chaos together. So our writer here is a 44-year-old mom with a 16-year-old son, and she's about to have what I can only describe as the ultimate peak parenting moment. You know, the kind where everything you've ever taught your kid, every conversation you've had, every hypothetical scenario you've played out in your head at 2 a.m. is about to get stress tested in real time. Her son has had a girlfriend for the last 7 months, also 16 years old. And before we even get into the main drama, I want to take a moment to actually give this mom some serious props because of how she approached parenting around this topic. She and her husband didn't do that whole abstinence-only, fear-mongering, shame-based approach to sex education that so many parents default to. They were realistic about it. They taught their son about condoms. They taught him about Plan B. They taught him about birth control. Literally the whole comprehensive sex education package that honestly more parents need to be giving their kids. They didn't pretend that teenagers don't have hormones or that just telling them don't do it would magically work. Like, this is genuinely good parenting, in my opinion. Not sticking your head in the sand and pretending that if you don't talk about sex, your kids won't have it. That's not how any of this works. Now, they did tell him that he should be an adult to make sexual decisions, which, you know what? That's a completely reasonable boundary to set as a parent. You can educate your kids while still expressing what you think is the right choice. But as the writer puts it, and honestly, truer words have never been spoken in the history of parenting, 16-year-olds will be 16-year-olds. If there's a will, there's a way. And apparently these 2 teenagers found the way. Teenagers are like little escape artists when it comes to finding opportunities, I swear. So one day, completely out of the blue, the son sits both his parents down in the living room for what is clearly a serious talk. And the writer immediately knows something is up because her son is not a sit down and have a formal conversation kind of kid. This isn't his usual vibe. So she's running through all the possibilities in her head. Maybe he got in trouble at school. Maybe he failed a major test. Maybe he got caught doing something stupid with his friends. Maybe he accidentally broke something expensive. Maybe he needs money for something. You know, the normal range of teenage disaster scenarios that parents prepare themselves for. But oh honey, oh sweet summer child, she was not prepared for what actually came out of his mouth. The son dropped the absolute atomic bomb. His girlfriend is pregnant, And I cannot even imagine the sound of this mother's brain just completely and utterly short-circuiting in that moment. Like, you can picture the Windows error sound playing in her head. You can teach them everything, give them all the resources, all the information, all the tools, and life still goes, "Lol, watch this. Bet you didn't see this coming." The writer admits she had no idea they were even having sex. Not that she expected him to come home and announce it like, "Hey, mom, just so you know, we're sexually active now," because that would be weird. But she genuinely didn't think they had that much alone time together. But again, and I cannot stress this enough, if there's a will, there's a way. Teenagers are like criminal masterminds when it comes to finding 5 unsupervised minutes. They could be in a house full of people and somehow find a moment. It's honestly impressive in a terrifying way. So the girlfriend just found out 2 days ago she didn't get her period all of last week, which obviously set off alarm bells, so she took a test and it came back positive. And get this detail that's absolutely crucial. They were using condoms every single time. This isn't a case of two careless teenagers who threw caution to the wind. They were actually being responsible, using protection, doing what they were supposed to do, and still ended up in this situation. This is literally that 2% failure rate that everyone talks about, but nobody really thinks will happen to them. Like, those statistics feel abstract until suddenly they're your reality. The girlfriend hasn't told her parents yet, which honestly, I completely understand. That's probably one of the most terrifying conversations a 16-year-old could ever imagine having. How do you even start that conversation? "Hey mom, dad," so funny story. The writer asks her son if the girlfriend would be willing to come over and talk to them about what's going on, and the girlfriend had apparently already asked him if she could. So about an hour later, she shows up at their house, and now we've got this incredibly heavy, incredibly important conversation about to happen. Now, here's a detail that really stuck with me. This is only the third time the writer has ever met this girl. The third time. So imagine the absolute pressure and awkwardness of that situation. You barely know your son's girlfriend. You've met her twice before, probably just casual, "Hi, nice to meet you" type interactions. And now you're sitting down to discuss one of the most life-altering, serious situations that could possibly exist. The girlfriend is understandably very distraught about the whole thing, and the writer initially thinks maybe it's just nerves from talking to her boyfriend's parents about something so heavy. But, like, this poor girl is probably having the absolute worst week of her entire life so far. She's 16, she's terrified, she's confused, she's probably barely slept, and now she has to have this conversation with adults she barely knows. Here's where we get some really important context about who this girl is. She's a 4.0 GPA student. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't just any student. This is a straight A, top of her class kind of student. She's trying to get the highest diploma she can possibly get. She wants to go to school and become a psychiatrist. This is a kid with plans, with ambitions, with a future that she's been working incredibly hard for. She's got goals, she's got dreams, she's been putting in the work, and now all of that is suddenly in jeopardy. There were a lot of tears shed during this conversation, and honestly, my heart absolutely breaks for this girl. She's 16 years old, she's scared out of her mind, her entire life trajectory just got thrown into question, and she's trying to figure out what to do. The writer asks her the most important question: what does she want to do? And here's where things get really interesting and honestly pretty heartbreaking. At first, the girlfriend says that if they want to be grandparents, she'll keep the baby. And I actually really love what the writer does here. She immediately tells her to not think about her and her husband and to not even think about her son. She tells her to think about what she wants for herself. Right. Like, that's actually really mature, really thoughtful advice. This is a decision that's going to affect the rest of this girl's life. And the writer is making sure she's not making it based on what she thinks other people want or expect from her. She's giving her permission to be honest about her own needs and wants, which in a situation like this is so incredibly important. And the girlfriend, being honest and real about her situation, admits that a baby would ruin what she has going for the next 10 years. And you know what? That's a completely valid, Completely reasonable, completely honest thing to say. She's not being selfish. She's being realistic about her situation. She's 16 years old. She has plans for college, plans for medical school, plans for a career as a psychiatrist. Having a baby right now would fundamentally alter or potentially destroy all of those plans. That's just the reality of the situation. Teen parenthood is incredibly difficult, and it often does derail educational and career goals. That's not a judgment, that it's just a fact. The writer suggests that she might want to look into giving up the baby for adoption, or maybe consider abortion as options. She's laying out what the choices are, helping this girl understand what her options actually are in this situation. And then the writer does something that I think is really important and shows a lot of character. She tells the girlfriend that she could cover the cost of an abortion if needed, because this was a result of her son too. She's acknowledging that her son is 50% responsible for this pregnancy, and she's willing to help provide a solution. That's taking parental responsibility seriously. After more tears and more talking, and I can only imagine how emotional and difficult this entire conversation was for everyone involved, the girlfriend says she'll go home and tell her parents that she prefers an abortion. This is her decision, made after thinking about her own life and her own future. Nobody forced her this decision. The writer gave her options and told her to choose what was best for her. And this, my friends, is where everything goes absolutely, completely, spectacularly nuclear. Like we're talking full meltdown, Chernobyl-level disaster. At 8 p.m. the next day, the writer gets a call from the girlfriend's mom. First of all, how did she even get the number? Did the girlfriend give it to her? Did she look it up somehow? Doesn't really matter at this point because this woman is screaming. Like, not just raised voice, not just upset, full volume, probably woke up the entire neighborhood, someone might call the cops level, screaming. She's accusing the writer of encouraging their daughter to get rid of their grandbaby. And also, and this is where it gets really ugly, encouraging their daughter to be a killer. Okay, pause. Let's just take a moment to talk about this because this is where things get really problematic. This woman just found out that her 16-year-old daughter is pregnant. Her 16-year-old daughter, a literal child who is still in high school, who still lives at home, who is still figuring out who she is as a person. And instead of being primarily concerned about her daughter's future, her daughter's education, her daughter's well-being, her daughter's mental health, her daughter's physical health, what this means for her daughter's life, she's already calling it their grandbaby and throwing around inflammatory words like killer. Like, ma'am, with all due respect, your daughter is still a child herself. She's 16. She can't vote, she can't drink, she can't rent a car, she probably just got her driver's license, if that. Maybe, just maybe, the priority here should be what's best for her and not what you want in terms of a grandchild. Just a thought. Uh, the writer tries to explain, and I want to emphasize that she does this very calmly and reasonably from what we can tell, that their daughter has a really good future going for her. She's a 4.0 student. She wants to be a psychiatrist. She has her whole life ahead of her, and they don't want to see all of that get taken away because she's 16 years old and having sex with her boyfriend. The writer even brings up a very real, very practical concern. God forbid the teenagers break up someday, which, let's be real, most high school relationships don't last forever. That's just statistically true. Then it becomes a huge, complicated mess with custody arrangements and child support and co-parenting with one who might not even be in your life anymore. These are all very logical, very reasonable points to make. But nope, the girlfriend's mom isn't hearing any of it. She still insists that they want her to keep the baby and not abort it. They want this, not what their daughter wants, what they want. And here's the moment that makes this entire "Am I the asshole?" post exist. Here's where our writer says the thing that caused her to question whether she went too far. She tells the girlfriend's mom that if she makes her daughter carry that baby to term, the writer herself will come in and drop the baby off at the fire department herself. Now, let's unpack this for a second because this is the crux of the whole issue. Is this dramatic? Absolutely, 100%. No question. Is it probably not the most diplomatic or tactful thing to say in that moment? For sure, yeah, there were probably calmer ways to express this sentiment. But also, I kind of get where she's coming from, and I think the emotional core of what she's saying is actually coming from a place of genuine concern. What she's essentially saying is, if you force this baby into existence against your daughter's will, if you make my 16-year-old son who is not ready to be a father become a father anyway, I am not going to let that baby suffer in a bad situation. I will make sure that baby gets surrendered to people who can actually take care of it. She's talking about using safe surrender laws, which exist specifically so that babies don't end up in dangerous situations. She's saying she'll take responsibility for making sure the baby ends up somewhere safe, rather than being raised by teenagers who aren't ready and don't want to be parents. Is it a harsh thing to say? Yes. Is it maybe a little aggressive? Sure. But she's essentially drawing a line in the sand and saying, you cannot force my son into parenthood. And honestly, I don't think that's an unreasonable position to take. Her son is 16, and as we'll learn in a minute, he's dealing with some serious stuff that makes the idea of him being a father right now even more complicated. The girlfriend's mom proceeds to call the writer pretty much every name under the sun, and we're not told exactly what names, but I think we can use our imagination here. We're probably talking a full arsenal of insults and accusations. Real mature behavior there from an adult woman, by the way. Super helpful for the situation. And eventually, the writer just hangs up. Because honestly, what else are you supposed to do when someone is having a complete and total meltdown at you over the phone? When someone is screaming and name-calling and not listening to anything you're saying, sometimes the only thing you can do is end the conversation. Now, here's where things get even more complicated because the writer's husband is starting to second guess their entire approach. He's saying, maybe they never should have talked to the son's girlfriend about this at all. Maybe they should have just let the two teenagers figure the baby situation out on their own and only stepped in when they absolutely needed to. And I can understand where he's coming from. He probably didn't expect things to blow up like this, and now he's worried they made things worse. But I actually think the writer made the right call in talking to the girlfriend, and here's why. The writer gives us some absolutely crucial context about their son that reframes this entire situation. He's battling depression, like real, actual clinical depression that he's in therapy for. He does his basic chores, his dishes, his laundry, cleaning his room, but it takes everything out of him to do these basic tasks. They step in and help him with his chores sometimes because he's struggling that much. He's working with a therapist, and they're learning alongside him about how to help him manage his depression. And here's the really important part. There is no way he can hold a job right now. He literally cannot maintain employment in his current mental health state. This completely changes everything. This isn't just, oh, he's a typical teenage boy who doesn't want to do chores. This is a kid who is genuinely, seriously struggling with mental health issues and is not in any position whatsoever to be responsible for another entire human life. We're talking about someone who finds basic self-care tasks to be overwhelming, someone who needs parental help with everyday responsibilities, someone who is actively in therapy trying to get to a better place mentally. And now imagine adding a baby into that equation. Babies don't sleep through the night. Babies need constant attention and care. Babies are expensive. Babies are stressful. Even adults with perfect mental health find babies incredibly challenging. The idea of a 16-year-old with depression trying to be a parent is honestly heartbreaking and kind of terrifying. It wouldn't be good for him, and it wouldn't be good for the baby either. The writer says she doesn't want to see a baby born into not the greatest conditions, which is honestly such a compassionate and realistic way of looking at this situation. She's not being cruel. She's thinking about what would actually be best for everyone involved, including a hypothetical baby. She loves her son dearly. She makes that very clear, but she also knows that he is absolutely not ready to be a father in any capacity right now. And forcing him into that role wouldn't magically make him ready. It would probably just make his depression worse and create a really difficult situation for everyone, especially an innocent baby. The writer is now questioning whether she was an asshole to the girlfriend's mom. And honestly, I think she's being way too hard on herself. So here's my verdict, and I'm not going to beat around the bush here. No, the writer is absolutely not the asshole in this situation. Let me break down exactly why I think this, because I have thoughts about this entire situation. First of all, let's talk about what the writer actually did right, because there's a lot here. She had comprehensive sex education conversations with her son. She didn't shame him when he came to her with this problem. She invited the girlfriend over to talk and made sure she felt safe and heard. She explicitly told the girlfriend to make decisions based on what she wanted, not what anyone else wanted. She offered to financially support whatever decision the girlfriend made. She acknowledged that her son was 50% responsible and took that responsibility seriously. She considered her son's mental health and actual capacity to be a parent. All of this is good, thoughtful, responsible parenting. Now, was threatening to drop a baby off at a fire department the most elegant or diplomatic solution? No, definitely not. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that was a perfect thing to say. Could she have phrased it better? Probably, yeah. There were probably calmer ways to express that sentiment. But you know what? Sometimes when someone is screaming at you over the phone, calling you names, accusing you of encouraging murder, and completely refusing to consider their own daughter's future and well-being, you say something dramatic and extreme to try to make them understand the gravity of the situation and how serious you are about protecting your son. The writer wasn't trying to be cruel or threatening for the sake of being threatening. She was essentially saying, I will not allow my son to be forced into parenthood, and I will not allow a baby to suffer in a bad situation. That's actually a pretty reasonable boundary to set, even if the delivery was harsh. Let's contrast this with the girlfriend's parents' behavior, because they are the ones who are really being unreasonable here. They found out their 16-year-old daughter is pregnant, and instead of having compassion for her situation, instead of thinking about her future and her well-being, they're already treating this pregnancy like it's their do-over baby, their second chance at grandparenthood. They're calling their daughter a killer for considering her options, which is an absolutely horrible thing to say to a scared teenager who is trying to figure out what to do. They're prioritizing a potential grandchild over their actual living, breathing daughter who has dreams and goals and a future. That's what's wild here. That's what's actually messed up about this situation. And can we talk about how the writer even offered to pay for the abortion because this was a result of my son too? That's taking responsibility. That's acknowledging that pregnancy takes two people and her son is 50% of this equation. And she's willing to help solve the problem he helped create. That's mature, that's fair, that's reasonable. The girlfriend's parents are being controlling and manipulative. They're trying to force their daughter into a life-altering decision that she doesn't want, all because of what they want. Um, they're not thinking about the fact that their daughter is a 4.0 student who wants to be a psychiatrist. They're not thinking about how hard it is to be a teenage parent. They're not thinking about their daughter's mental health or how this will affect her future. They're just thinking about themselves and what they want, and that's genuinely bad parenting. The writer, on the other hand, is trying to prevent three lives from being completely derailed here. Her son's life, his girlfriend's life, and honestly, the life of a baby that would be born to two teenagers who aren't ready, don't want to be parents, and wouldn't be able to provide the kind of stable, healthy environment that a child deserves. One of those teenagers is actively battling depression and can't even hold down a job. That's not a situation you want to bring a baby into. So no, the writer is not the asshole. She's being a realistic, responsible parent who is thinking about everyone's well-being, including the well-being of a hypothetical baby. She's not being selfish. She's not being cruel. She's being practical and honest about what her son can handle and what would actually be best for everyone involved. The real assholes here are the girlfriend's parents. Full stop. They're the ones who are prioritizing their own desires over their daughter's future. They're the ones who called another parent screaming and name-calling instead of having a mature conversation. They're the ones who are calling their 16-year-old daughter a killer for considering her options. They're the ones who are trying to force a life-altering decision on a teenager. They are the problem here, not the writer. The writer did everything she could to handle an impossibly difficult situation with grace, compassion, and practical thinking. Could one comment have been phrased better? Sure, but overall, she gets a not guilty verdict from me. Not the asshole. Not even remotely close to being the asshole. Am I the asshole for telling my sick family they can't have Thanksgiving at my house? Okay, I need everyone to take a deep breath with me because this story is stressful from the very first sentence. Ryder is out here trying to protect their kids from getting sick, and somehow they're being made to feel like the bad guy. Make it make sense. So let's start from the beginning. Ryder's nephew was diagnosed with hand, foot, and mouth disease about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, hand, foot, and mouth disease is not a joke. It's highly contagious, it's miserable, and it spreads through households like wildfire. We're talking blisters in the mouth, on hands, on feet, fever, the whole 9 yards. It's especially common in young kids, and it's the kind of thing that daycare centers send home warning letters about. So, nephew has this lovely plague situation going on, which already means he's contagious and spreading germs everywhere. But wait, it gets better. Ryder then finds out your day, sister and her husband have also contracted it from their son. So now we've got a whole nuclear family of contagion. All three of them are walking petri dishes at this point. Oh, and here's a fun little detail that Ryder casually drops. The sister and her family live with Ryder's parents. So we've got an entire household that's been exposed to this virus. The parents' house is basically ground zero for hand, foot, and mouth disease right now. Because of this extremely reasonable health concern, it was decided that Thanksgiving would be moved to Ryder's house. Okay, that makes sense so far. You can't have people gathering at a house where everyone's sick, so you move it to a healthy household, standard procedure. And the sick family said they wouldn't come, which is exactly what they should do when they're contagious. Everything is tracking, everything is logical, everyone's being responsible. But then, Ryder's mom calls today to inform them, not ask, inform, that actually, surprise, the sister, her husband, and their son will be joining everyone at Ryder's house for Thanksgiving. I'm sorry, what kind of bait and switch is this? Don't worry, the sick people won't come to your house. And then immediately, actually, yes, they will. Hope that's cool. That's not how consent works. That's not how hosting works. That's not how disease control works. Ryder very reasonably tells their mom that they don't want sick people in their house because they're still contagious at this point. This is not rocket science. This is basic common sense. If you're sick with a contagious disease, you don't go to other people's houses and spread it around. This is stuff we learned in kindergarten and then had reinforced for 2 years during a global pandemic. And Ryder has 4 children, one of whom gets sick easily. They're not being paranoid or overprotective. They're being a responsible parent. But here's where it gets even more justified. The last time hand, foot, and mouth was in Ryder's house, their 3 older kids were out of school for weeks, not days. Weeks. They all reacted badly and had blisters and severely peeling skin that bled. Can we just pause on that imagery for a second? Skin peeling so badly it bled. That's not a little cold. That's not sniffles. That's genuine suffering that these kids went through. And Ryder watched their children go through it. So, yeah, Ryder is understandably not trying to run that back for round 2. But the mom has a solution, and oh boy, is it a doozy. She says that the sister and her husband will be gloved up and sitting at a separate table from everyone else. Okay, so let me get this straight. We're going to have a Thanksgiving where some people are quarantined at their own table, wearing gloves like they're about to perform surgery. That sounds like a super fun and not at all awkward holiday gathering. Nothing says grateful and blessed like a segregated plague table. But it gets worse. The mom says that while the adults will be gloved and separated, their son, who is under 2 years old, will have free roam the home. Free roam. The literal source of the infection, the baby who has hand, foot, and mouth disease, gets to just wander around Ryder's house, touching everything with his contaminated little hands. Because as Ryder points out, he's under 2, so he gets into stuff and still puts things in his mouth. That's what toddlers do. They're basically tiny, canny chaos agents who touch every surface and then lick their hands. You can't explain to a baby, hey, you need to maintain social distancing and practice good hygiene. That's not mentally possible. So the parents will be sitting there in gloves at their own table, performatively pretending to be careful, while their viral vector of a child just distributes germs throughout Ryder's entire house. That's the plan. That's what the mom thinks is a reasonable compromise. Ryder asks the completely logical question: if the sick family is so set on being at Thanksgiving, why can't they just have it at their own house? The house where they already live, the house that's already contaminated, the house where everyone is already exposed. The mom's response is absolutely unbelievable. She says because then they would have to sanitize everything. I, what? What? They don't want to sanitize their own house, but they're perfectly fine coming to Ryder's house and forcing Ryder to sanitize everything after they leave. They don't want to deal with the cleanup of hosting while sick, so they're just going to transfer that burden to Ryder, and not just the burden of cleaning, but the burden of exposure and potential infection. The entitlement is genuinely staggering. We don't want to clean our house, so we'll just come contaminate yours instead. That's the logic here. That's what they think is fair and reasonable. Ryder rightfully points out that it's unfair that the sick family isn't willing to sanitize their house to make it safe for people to come over, but they want to come to Ryder's house and infect Ryder's household. This is the most obvious, straightforward, basic logic imaginable. If you're not willing to do the work to make your house safe, you don't get to make someone else's house unsafe instead. But instead of acknowledging this very simple point, the mom starts crying, says she won't have this conversation, and hangs up. Oh, we're doing the emotional manipulation playbook now. Can't defend your unreasonable position with logic, so time to cry and make the other person feel guilty. Classic move. So Ryder is asking, am I the asshole for telling my mom that they're being selfish and I don't want them in my house? And before we even get to the edit, let me be crystal clear. No, absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Ryder is not the asshole here. Protecting your children from a contagious disease is not being mean. It's not being unreasonable. It's not being selfish. It's called being a parent. Ryder has already seen their kids suffer through this illness once. Blisters, peeling skin that bled, weeks out of school, and they're supposed to just roll out the welcome mat and invite it back in? That's absurd. But then we get to the edit, and oh my God, the edit adds a whole new layer of complexity to this mess. Ryder wanted to add this because people were asking why it's even a question. Why would Ryder allow anyone from that contaminated household into their home? Here's why. The sick family is providing 100% of the Thanksgiving meal. So Ryder is hosting, but the sick people are bringing all the food. Already this dynamic is weird, but okay, families have different arrangements. But here's the real kicker. Ryder and their husband are in some legal trouble, and Ryder's parents are giving them a gift that will help them relieve that situation. So there's financial dependency happening here. Ryder needs this help from their parents. And here's where it gets really toxic. Ryder's family is the type where if Ryder tells their mom no to anything, even if it's the reasonable answer, she will renege on her promises and take the gift back. Y'all, this is financial manipulation. This is holding help hostage in exchange for compliance. This is do what I want or I'll pull my support coercion. That's not healthy family dynamics. That's control. Ryder is considering allowing their mom and dad to still come over for Thanksgiving because of this financial situation. They've put their foot down with the sister and her family, but they're worried about completely burning the bridge with the parents because they're reliant on their help. If Ryder wasn't so dependent on this assistance, they would 100% just cancel the entire holiday. But they also can't reschedule because this is 100% on the parents. The only thing Ryder has a say in is that it's their home. This is such a messed up position to be in. Ryder is being forced to choose between their children's health and safety versus financial help they apparently desperately need. That's not a choice anyone should have to make. That's a hostage situation with extra steps. The family dynamic here is deeply dysfunctional. The mom uses crying and guilt to manipulate. She threatens to withdraw support if she doesn't get her way. She's willing to risk her grandchildren's health because she won't tell her daughter, no, you can't go to Thanksgiving while you're contagious. The sister and her husband are apparently fine with potentially infecting an entire household rather than just staying home when they're sick. And everyone seems to think that Ryder's boundaries and concerns don't matter. Let's be real about what's happening here. Ryder's parents are using financial leverage to override Ryder's very reasonable health and safety boundaries. They're essentially saying, let sick people into your house or lose the help you need. That's manipulation. That's coercion. That's toxic family dynamics 101. And the whole setup is bonkers anyway. Even if we set aside the financial manipulation for a second, the original plan of having sick people sit separately while their toddler roams free is not a real solution. Hand, foot, and mouth disease is spread through respiratory droplets, saliva, fluid from blisters, and fecal matter. It can survive on surfaces for days. So even if the adults are wearing gloves and sitting at a separate table, they're still breathing the same air as everyone else. They're still using the same bathroom. They're still touching door handles and light switches. And their kid is definitely spreading it everywhere because that's what sick toddlers do. They're basically germ grenades with legs. There is no scenario where having active cases of hand, foot, and mouth disease in your home during a gathering is safe. The CDC literally recommends that infected people avoid close contact with others until they're no longer contagious, which is typically until the fever is gone and mouth sores are healed. We're talking at least a week, often longer. The sister and her family were diagnosed a week and a half to 2 weeks ago, but they all have it now, which means the parents just got it recently. They're still absolutely in the contagious phase. This isn't Ryder being paranoid. This is legitimate medical concern based on how disease transmission actually works. And can we talk about the audacity of the mom saying they don't want to sanitize their own house? Like, if you're recovering from hand, foot, and mouth disease in your home, you should be sanitizing everything anyway. That's part of preventing reinfection and stopping the spread. The fact that they don't want to do that basic hygiene measure is actually kind of concerning. It really feels like the mom has decided that Thanksgiving must happen on the actual day with everyone present. Consequences be damned. She's so attached to this picture-perfect holiday gathering that she's willing to risk multiple children's health to make it happen. That's not love. That's not family values. That's prioritizing the appearance of togetherness over actual well-being. Am I the asshole for refusing to bring $100 minimum to Thanksgiving? Okay, so let me get this straight. Ryder shows up to what's supposed to be a chill family Thanksgiving, ready to bring some mashed potatoes and vibe with the fam, and suddenly gets hit with what I can only describe as a Thanksgiving shakedown. Like, I need everyone to pause for a second because this is wild. So we've got roughly 20 to 25 people gathering for Thanksgiving, which honestly sounds chaotic, but in a fun way, right? Ryder's got a whole baby, literally 6 months old, and just wants to contribute like a normal person. The writer mentions their family is only 2 people with one 6-month-old baby, so they're basically showing up as a small unit to this massive gathering. Sweet, wholesome, very let me bring a side dish energy. But then, plot twist nobody asked for, the nephew decides to drop $300 on meat because he bought a grill. $300. Now listen, I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, like go off king, live your grilling dreams. But here's the thing, nobody asked him to do that. He just went rogue with the barbecue budget and now everyone's supposed to foot the bill? That's like me ordering a gold leaf pizza for the function and then passing around a collection plate. The audacity is genuinely impressive. Ryder did what any normal person would do, messaged in the group chat saying they'd bring mashed potatoes. Simple. Classic. Everyone loves mashed potatoes, but knew that wasn't good enough, apparently. And can we talk about the sister for a second? Because she really came into that group chat like some kind of Thanksgiving mob boss. Every family has to bring $100 minimum or help pay for the meat. Ma'am, this is a family dinner, not a resort in the Maldives with a minimum spend requirement. When did Thanksgiving become a pay-to-play event? Did I miss the memo where we started treating holiday gatherings like exclusive clubs with cover charges? Writer even says they're not totally against bringing that much food, which honestly is very reasonable of them, but it's the way it was presented and the fact that nobody agreed to this beforehand that's the problem. And yeah, that's completely valid. You can't just spring financial requirements on people after they've already committed to bringing something. That's not how any of this works. But wait, it it gets better. No, actually, it gets worse. So much worse. The sister doubles down the next day and presents these options like she's hosting the Hunger Games or something. Let me break down this absolutely unhinged message. Option 1, bring food enough for everyone, not just yourself. Option 2, help Thomas pay for meat $100 for family. Option 3, help dad pay water bill $200 for family. Choose wisely. Girl, you're not Morpheus offering the red pill and the blue pill. You're just being controlling at Thanksgiving. And the condescending choose wisely at the end? I would have lost it right there. That's so patronizing it physically hurts. And option 3? Option 3? Help pay dad's $200 water bill per family? I'm sorry, but how did dad's utility bill end up on the Thanksgiving potluck menu? That's a completely separate issue. That's like going to a birthday party and being told you need to chip in for the host's car payment. Like, what kind of financial hostage situation is this family running? How does a water bill even correlate to Thanksgiving dinner? Make it make sense. Writer's response of option 4, don't show up, is honestly chef's kiss. Perfect. No notes. Because what else are you supposed to say when your family is literally charging admission to Thanksgiving dinner? This isn't a fundraiser. It's supposed to be a holiday about gratitude and being together, not about who can drop the most cash on sides. Now let's address the elephant in the room, or should I say, the $300 meat platter. The nephew chose to spend that money. Chose. Nobody forced his hand. Nobody held a gun to his head at the butcher shop. He made an executive decision to ball out on protein, and that's his prerogative. But you can't just unilaterally decide to spend a small fortune and then demand everyone reimburse you. That's not how potlucks work. That's not how life works. If I decide to show up to book club with a $100 bottle of wine, I can't then Venmo request everyone 20 bucks. That's psychotic behavior. And listen, I get it, feeding 20 to 25 people isn't cheap. But there are ways to handle this, like actual adults. You have a conversation before anyone buys anything. You say, hey, this is a big group. Let's coordinate and maybe everyone can pitch in a specific amount. And you have that discussion like reasonable humans. You don't ambush people in a group chat with ultimatums and price minimums after the fact. The fact that Ryder has a 6-month-old baby makes this even more ridiculous. Do you know how expensive babies are? Do you know how tired you are with a 6-month-old? This person is probably running on 3 hours of sleep, covered in spit up, just trying to make it through the day, and now they're being told they need to drop $100 minimum to attend a family function. And that's the minimum requirement, not even the maximum. Read the room. Family. Read the room. Ryder is literally out here asking if they would be the asshole for not showing up at all in protest to this $100 minimum rule. And honestly, I don't even think protest is the right word here. It's more like self-respect. It's setting boundaries. It's saying, I will not be financially extorted by my own family members. But then, oh my God, then we get to the update. The update. I need everyone to sit down for this if you're not already sitting, because the sister really said, let me commit a war crime real quick. She posted a picture of Ryder's salary that she found online to shame them in the group chat. I'm sorry, I need to say that again louder for the people in the back. She doxed Ryder's salary in the family group chat to shame them about money. That is so far beyond okay that I don't even have words. That's not just crossing a line. That's catapulting over the line, doing a backflip and landing in a whole different zone code of inappropriate. What kind of person does that? What kind of sister does that? And over Thanksgiving dinner politics, over $100. The disrespect is astronomical. It's giving toxic, it's giving boundary issues. It's giving I need to win at all costs, even if it means nuking family relationships. And can we acknowledge that Ryder is a teacher? A teacher. out here educating future generations, shaping young minds, probably spending their own money on classroom supplies because that's what teachers have to do in this country, doing one of the most important and undervalued jobs in society and getting publicly shamed for their salary by their own family member. Teachers already don't get paid enough. That's a whole other conversation we could have. And now Ryder has to deal with this nonsense. The disrespect is coming from inside the house. Like, imagine being in that group chat with your parents, siblings, nieces, nephews, everyone, and your sister just posts your salary information for everyone to see. To prove what point exactly? That you can afford $100, so you should just shut up and pay it? That is so manipulative and toxic, I can't even process it properly. That's the kind of thing you don't come back from in a relationship. That's nuclear option territory. Ryder says definitely not going now, and honestly, good. That's the only correct response to this situation. At this point, not going isn't even a protest anymore. It's self-preservation. It's setting a boundary. It's saying, I will not be financially manipulated and publicly humiliated by people who are supposed to love and support me. That's not being dramatic. That's called having self-respect. Here's the thing about family dynamics that I think people forget. Just because someone is related to you doesn't mean they get to treat you however they want. Blood relation isn't a free pass to be controlling, demanding, or cruel. And what the sister did with that salary post? That's cruel. That's calculated. That's designed to embarrass and coerce. And honestly, it shows exactly what kind of person she is. She was willing to humiliate her sibling, who's also a parent to a 6-month-old baby, in front of the entire family just to win an argument about Thanksgiving contributions. The whole situation screams of people who don't understand boundaries or basic human decency. Like, even if you think someone can afford something, you don't get to demand they spend their money how you want them to. And you definitely get to publicly shame them if they push back. That's controlling behavior. That's financial abuse territory, honestly. So would Ryder be the asshole for not showing up? Let me be crystal clear. Ryder, you are absolutely, positively, 100% not the asshole here. Not even a little bit. Not even at all. Your sister is the asshole. Your nephew, who spent $300 without consulting anyone and then expected reimbursement, is also kind of the asshole, though I'll give him slightly less blame because at least he's not out here posting people's salaries online like some kind of financial terrorist. You offered to bring mashed potatoes. That's participating. That's contributing. That's being part of the family gathering in the way that Thanksgiving has worked for literal generations. The fact that wasn't good enough and that you got hit with ultimatums and financial requirements and then literal public shaming, nah. Hard pass. Do not attend. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 of water bill debt that somehow got shoehorned into this mess. Spend Thanksgiving with your partner and your baby. Make your own mashed potatoes. Make a whole feast if you want, or order pizza. It doesn't matter. Watch football or the parade or baby sensory videos or whatever makes you happy. Create your own traditions that don't involve financial shakedowns and toxic family members weaponizing your career salary against you. You deserve better than this circus, and your baby deserves to grow up seeing you set healthy boundaries. And to everyone else reading this, if your family is charging admission to holiday dinners and posting your personal financial information to shame you into compliance, you are allowed to opt out. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to protect your peace. Thanksgiving is supposed to be about gratitude and togetherness, not about who can drop the most cash or who's willing to tolerate the most dysfunction. Ryder, go live your best life with your little family of 3. Let them have their $100 minimum Thanksgiving with the $300 meat and the water bill fundraiser. You just won the lottery by not having to sit through what is guaranteed to be the most awkward, tension-filled meal of the year, where everyone's probably going to be talking about you anyway. You gave them the perfect out by not showing up. Now they can gossip without you there, and you can eat mashed potatoes in peace without someone calculating the price per pound. Blessings in disguise and all that. Not the asshole, not even close. And honestly, I hope you have the best quiet Thanksgiving ever. Am I the asshole for circumventing my wife's plans regarding her son's wedding? All right. Buckle up because we're diving into some family drama that has layers like an onion, and just like an onion, it's making me want to cry a little bit. Ryder is out here trying to navigate a wedding, a toxic family dynamic, and what appears to be his wife's commitment to making everyone miserable in the name of spite, pride, unresolved childhood trauma, all of the above. Let's unpack this absolute mess. So right off the bat, Ryder drops this bomb. His wife and stepson had a huge fight after he graduated high school, and it never really got resolved. Now, I need everyone to really sit with that for a second. This fight happened years ago. We're talking post-high school, so the stepson is presumably at least old enough to be getting married now, which means this beef has been simmering for years. That's not a disagreement. That's a grudge that's been marinating in resentment and stubbornness for literal years. And apparently, whenever the stepson visits, the fight inevitably reignites. So they can't even be in the same room without going back to whatever this nuclear argument was about. That's already exhausting just to read about. Imagine living it. Every family visit is just a ticking time bomb waiting to explode into the same argument they've been having since this kid graduated high school. But here's where it gets even more twisted. When the stepson decides not to visit, to avoid the inevitable fight, the wife feels slighted and gets angry. So let me get this straight. If he visits, they fight and everyone's miserable. If he doesn't visit to avoid the fighting, she's angry that he didn't visit. The stepson literally cannot win here. There is no right move. It's a lose-lose situation that the wife has created and apparently refuses to resolve. This is the definition of a toxic dynamic. The wife is holding on to whatever this fight was about with both hands, refusing to let go, refusing to work through it, but also refusing to accept the natural consequences of that choice, which is that her son doesn't want to be around her. You can't have it both ways. You can't maintain an active feud with someone and then be mad when they keep their distance. Now, the stepson is getting married. Congratulations to him, honestly, for achieving this milestone, despite what sounds like a really, really difficult family situation, and everyone is invited to the wedding. This should be a happy occasion. This should be a time where maybe, just maybe, everyone can put aside their differences for one day and celebrate this couple starting their life together. But no, of course not, because the wife has a plan, and oh boy, is it a plan designed for maximum misery. Here's the wife's brilliant strategy. Wake up at the ass crack of dawn, drive 2.5 hours to the wedding, go to the reception, then immediately drive 2.5 hours back home. That's it. That's the plan. They're invited to almost all of the pre-wedding events. There are several, Ryder specifies, but they're attending exactly 0 of them. They're doing the absolute bare minimum to technically say they attended the wedding while making it as rushed and unpleasant as possible. Ryder's response to this plan is perfect. Yeah, I'm not doing that shit. Honestly, mood. Why would anyone voluntarily sign up for that kind of exhausting, joyless experience? 5 hours of driving in one day, probably showing up stressed and tired, rushing through the reception so they can get back on the road, missing all the fun pre-wedding events where you actually get to connect with family and celebrate properly. That sounds absolutely miserable. So Ryder presents a completely reasonable alternative plan. Drive down Thursday evening and attend the rehearsal dinner, go to the bachelor party on Friday, enjoy a peaceful Saturday, get up at a reasonable hour on Sunday for the wedding and reception, sleep in Monday, then drive home. This is how normal people attend weddings. This is how you actually enjoy a wedding and make it a celebratory occasion instead of a punishment. And Ryder straight up says it. I know my wife doesn't want to do the long weekend. She wants to punish her son. There it is. That's the whole thing right there. This isn't about logistics or scheduling or budget constraints. This is about the wife using the wedding as an opportunity to demonstrate her displeasure and punish her son for whatever this year's old fight was about that she refuses to resolve. Think about how petty and toxic that is. Your child is getting married, one of the biggest milestones in their life, and instead of being happy for them and celebrating with them, you're scheming about how to make your attendance as obviously minimal and grudging as possible. You're trying to turn what should be a joyful family gathering into a statement about how wronged you feel. Ryder refuses to be part of this punishment scheme, and honestly, good for him. He says he refuses to catch a stray and suffer to aid her punishment of him. That's exactly what would happen. Ryder has no dog in this fight. This is between his wife and her son from before Ryder was even in the picture, presumably. But he's expected to also suffer through a miserable, exhausting day just to support his wife's vendetta? Nah. And Ryder brings up a really good point. He wants to enjoy the wedding, not hear about how shitty we were about it at every family reunion for the next eon. Because that's exactly what would happen. If they show up exhausted, leave immediately. Skip all the other events. Everyone is going to notice. Everyone is going to talk about it. It's going to be a thing at every future family gathering. Remember when you barely showed up to the wedding? That's going to follow them forever. The wife's response is wild. He's her son, and it's her decision. No? That's not how marriages work. You don't get to unilaterally make decisions that affect your spouse and just declare my way or the highway because it involves your kid from a previous relationship. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership where you discuss things and find compromises, especially when it comes to family events that involve both of you. Ryder's response is absolutely perfect. He tells her, do what you want. I'm taking the kids on Thursday. Come with us or don't. I'm not playing this game. I'm not embarrassing myself in front of the extended family just to present a united front. That is setting a boundary. That's saying, I will not participate in toxic behavior just because you want me to. That's being willing to break the united front when what you're being asked to unite on is unreasonable and harmful. Sometimes the right move is to not present a united front when your partner is being unreasonable. And Ryder mentions taking the kids, which means there are other children involved here. Presumably kids he shares with his wife, which means they're the stepson's half-siblings. So Ryder is also thinking about them and their experience. Does he want his kids to remember their brother's wedding as this miserable, exhausting day where they barely participated? Does he want them to learn that this is how you handle family conflict with passive-aggressive punishment schemes instead of communication? Of course. The wife responds to this reasonable boundary by banishing Ryder to the guest bedroom. Classic relationship punishment move. You won't do what I want, so now you're sleeping somewhere else. Very mature, very healthy communication, definitely going to resolve the underlying issues. That was sarcasm, in case it wasn't obvious. But then Ryder's friends, who he thought would support him, say he's being an idiot. They say he's her son, so I should just support her and do what she wants. And okay, I can see where they're coming from on the surface level. Usually you support your spouse, especially when it comes to their kids. That's generally good advice. But this isn't a normal situation. This isn't support your wife's parenting decisions or back up your spouse when they're having a tough time with their kid. This is participate in your wife's petty revenge scheme that involves making everyone miserable and damaging relationships with extended family. Those are not the same thing. Ryder acknowledges that the stepson isn't his kid, but he makes an excellent point. That's not going to be a very good defense in 10 years when all the kids are reminiscing about what a prick he was at their brother's wedding because he hadn't slept the night before and was rushing through everything. The other kids aren't going to care about the technical biological relationships or the behind-the-scenes drama. They're going to remember that their dad or stepdad was miserable and weird at their brother's wedding, and that's going to affect how they see him. So Ryder asks, am I being a shitty husband or a good dad? And honestly, I think he's being both a good dad and a good husband, even if his wife can't see it right now. Let me explain. Being a good husband doesn't mean blindly supporting every decision your wife makes, especially when those decisions are harmful. Sometimes being a good partner means refusing to enable toxic behavior. Sometimes it means setting boundaries and saying, I love you, but I'm not doing this with you. Sometimes it means being the voice of reason when your spouse is too caught up in old wounds to see clearly. By refusing to participate in this punishment scheme, Ryder is actually protecting his marriage in the long run. If they went through with the wife's plan, the resentment would build. The extended family would judge them. The kids would be confused and uncomfortable. And in 10 years, Ryder would be looking back thinking, why did I let her talk me into that? He'd resent her for making him complicit in something he knew was wrong, and he'd resent himself for not standing up for what was right. And he's absolutely being a good dad. He's thinking about his kids' experience at their brother's wedding. He's thinking about the family relationships and how to preserve them. He's modeling healthy boundary setting and refusing to participate in toxic dynamics. He's showing his kids that you can love someone and still disagree with them, that you can be married and still maintain your own values and judgment. Plus, let's be real. He wants to go to the bachelor party. He wants to attend the rehearsal dinner. He wants to actually participate in this wedding celebration like a normal family member. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that's the healthy, normal response to being invited to family wedding events. The wife's behavior throughout this whole situation is concerning on multiple levels. She's holding a years-long grudge against her own son. She can't be in the same room with him without fighting, but she also won't accept him maintaining distance to avoid those fights. She's using his wedding as an opportunity for punishment rather than celebration. She's trying to force her husband to participate in her vendetta, and when he sets a reasonable boundary, she punishes him too by making him sleep in the guest room. This is controlling behavior. This is manipulative behavior. This is someone who's so stuck in their own hurt and anger that they can't see how it's damaging all their relationships, not just the one with their son. And we don't even know what the original fight was about. Ryder doesn't say, which makes me think either he doesn't know the full details or it's something that he knows doesn't justify this level of ongoing animosity. Because here's the thing. Unless the stepson did something truly heinous and unforgivable, holding a grudge through his entire adult life and into his wedding is disproportionate and unhealthy. Even if the stepson was in the wrong in the original fight, at some point you have to decide, is being right more important than having a relationship with your child? Is whatever happened worth missing out on major milestones and keeping this wound open forever? For most things, the answer should be no. And the stepson is still inviting her to the wedding. He's still inviting them to all the pre-wedding events. Despite the ongoing conflict, despite the fact that every visit ends in a fight, he's still trying to include his mother in this important moment. That shows he's still reaching out, still trying to maintain some kind of relationship despite how difficult she's making it. The wife is taking that olive branch and using it to orchestrate a punishment. Instead of seeing the wedding invitation as an opportunity to maybe finally work towards some kind of reconciliation or at least a peaceful coexistence, she's using it to make a statement about how wronged she feels. That's tragic, honestly. That's letting pride and hurt destroy something that could potentially be repaired. Ryder is trying to prevent that tragedy from expanding to include him and the other kids. He's trying to protect his relationship with his stepson, his kids' relationship with their brother, and honestly, he's trying to protect his wife from herself, even if she can't see it. Because imagine how the wife will feel in 10 years if this ends up being the last wedding event she attends for this son, because he finally gets fed up with her behavior and goes low or no contact. Imagine how she'll feel when she realizes that her insistence on punishing him pushed him away permanently. Imagine the regret when she looks back and realizes she made his wedding, which should have been a happy memory, into another battlefield. Ryder is trying to avoid that outcome by just being normal, by attending like a regular family member who's happy for the couple, by participating in the celebrations, by treating this like the joyful occasion it's supposed to be, instead of a theater for displaying grievances. The fact that Ryder is in the guest bedroom tonight tells us that this conflict is ongoing. The wife isn't backing down. She's doubling down on her position and punishing Ryder for not falling in line. And that's honestly sad because it shows how deep this pattern of behavior goes. She's not just doing this with her son, she's doing it with her husband too. When people don't do what she wants, she punishes them. That's not healthy. That's not how relationships work. Now, there's an edit that addresses some drama in the comments where apparently someone posted claiming to be the wife But writer says it's clearly a troll trying to farm engagement. The big tell? The fake post mentions Christmas, and writer had been mocking Jesus in comments hours before that post appeared. Which, okay, that's actually pretty funny evidence that it's fake. Trolls are getting creative, but not quite creative enough, apparently. But let's get to the actual judgment here, because that's what we're here for. Writer, you are not the asshole. You are so clearly, obviously not the asshole that I'm genuinely baffled your friends think otherwise. Your wife is the asshole, and I say this with sympathy because she's clearly hurt and stuck in an unresolved conflict. But she's the asshole. She's punishing her son during what should be a celebration. She's trying to force you to participate in that punishment. She's creating a situation where everyone loses. She damages her relationship with her son further. You look bad to the extended family, the kids have a miserable experience, and nobody actually enjoys the wedding. Your friends who called you an idiot are wrong. He's her son doesn't mean you have to blindly support toxic behavior. Being a supportive spouse means supporting your partner when they're being reasonable and gently refusing to enable them when they're not. You're being the more supportive spouse by setting this boundary than you would be by going along with her plan and letting the whole situation blow up at the wedding. You're thinking long term. You're thinking about all the relationships involved, not just the immediate conflict. You're thinking about your kids and what they'll remember. You're thinking about family unity and not creating more drama. You're being the adult in the room, even though it cost you your spot in the marital bed for the night. Here's what I think you should do if you want unsolicited advice. Go on your reasonable, enjoyable wedding weekend schedule. Take the kids. Be present and happy at all the events. Be gracious and kind to your stepson and his new spouse. Enjoy the bachelor party. Make good memories with your kids. And honestly, your wife might come around. When she sees that you're going regardless, when she realizes that she'll be the only one sitting at home nursing her grudge while everyone else is celebrating, she might decide to join you. She might not want to be left out, and that might be the push she needs to let go of the punishment scheme. Or she might not come, and she'll stay home stewing in her own resentment while missing her son's wedding entirely. And that will be her choice and her consequence to live with. You can't force her to let go of this grudge, but you also don't have to let it control your choices and your kids' experiences. Either way, in 10 years, you'll be able to look back on your stepson's wedding and remember that you were there, you participated, you celebrated with him, and you treated it like the joyful occasion it deserved to be. Your kids will remember that their dad showed up for their brother. Your stepson will remember that even when his mom was being difficult, his stepdad was in his corner. Those are the memories worth having. Those are the relationships worth preserving. And those are the reasons why you're absolutely making the right call here, even if it means sleeping in the guest room tonight. So no, you're not being a shitty husband. You're being a good husband by not enabling unhealthy behavior. You're not being just a good dad. You're being a great dad by prioritizing your kids' well-being and family relationships over short-term peacekeeping. Keep doing what you're doing. Set those boundaries. Attend that wedding properly. Enjoy that bachelor party. Create those good memories with your kids. And hopefully your wife will eventually see that you were trying to protect everyone, including her, from the fallout of her own grudge. And maybe, just maybe, this whole situation will be the catalyst for her to finally address whatever this years-long fight with her son is actually about. Because whatever it is, it's not worth missing your child's wedding over. It's not worth poisoning your marriage over. It's not worth teaching your other kids that this is how family conflict should be handled. Not the asshole, not even close. Now go forth and enjoy that wedding weekend like the reasonable adult you're being while everyone else loses their minds. Am I the asshole for not taking down pictures of my family in my own home to make my son's new wife feel more comfortable? All right, buckle up because we're about to dive into some family drama that is absolutely unhinged. Ryder is out here living their best life with hundreds of family photos decorating their home, which honestly sounds so wholesome and cozy, and suddenly they're being treated like they're running some kind of shrine to their son's ex. Spoiler alert, they're not. So let's set the scene. Writer is in their late 50s and describes themselves as a picture person. Love that energy. They've got hundreds of photos up in their home, and this whole thing started when they were caring for their aunt with Alzheimer's. Can we just acknowledge how sweet that is for a second? Like putting up photos so someone with memory issues could have visual reminders of family and loved ones? That's genuinely thoughtful and caring. And it just evolved from there into this beautiful gallery of family memories. Ryder has 3 kids and 4 grandkids, and obviously they want pictures of everyone they love displayed in their own home. This is completely normal. People have been putting family photos on walls since cameras were invented. This is not some revolutionary concept. Now here's where things start getting messy. Ryder's middle son, Gavin, is 27 and has a 4-year-old son named Tommy with his ex, Helena. They're no longer together, but, and this is important, they're still friendly and co-parent well. Ryder even sees Helena often because they help with Tommy. This is literally the best case scenario for a split. Everyone's being mature, the kid has a good relationship with both parents and his grandparents, nobody's being petty. It's healthy. It's functional. But then last year, Gavin married Sherry after only being together a few months. Only a few months. Let that marinate for a second. This man met someone, dated them for what I'm assuming was maybe 3 to 6 months max, and decided, yeah, let's get married, while having a young child from a previous relationship. Now, I'm not saying people can't fall in love quickly, but when you've got a kid involved, maybe pump the brakes a little. Just the thought. Ryder says Cherry seemed sweet and like she made Gavin happy, and they had no issues until this summer. So they've been married for like a year-ish at this point when Gavin comes to Ryder with this absolutely bonkers request. Take down any and all pictures that Helena is in to make Cherry more comfortable. I'm sorry, what? What? We're talking about pictures in Ryder's home, not Gavin and Cherry's home, not some shared space. Ryder's personal home that they own and decorate however they want. And Cherry is uncomfortable with what exactly? The existence of her husband's ex? The visual evidence that her stepson has a mother? Reality? And it's not like Ryder has some creepy solo portraits of Helena scattered around. They specify that they don't have any pictures of Helena alone, just a few with the entire family and a few from when Tommy was younger that Gavin is also in. So we're talking about normal family photos that happen to include the mother of Ryder's grandchild, reasonable documentation of their family history. Ryder very reasonably says no, it's their home, they like having the photos up, and they've actually added many pictures with Cherry in them too. So it's not like Cherry is being excluded or erased. She's being incorporated into the family photo gallery. But apparently, that's not good enough. Everyone who came before her needs to be scrubbed from existence like some kind of weird totalitarian photo purge. Ryder points out that it's silly to take pictures down just because Helena and Gavin are no longer together, because it's still part of their family history. And that's absolutely correct. Tommy exists. Helena is Tommy's mother. These are facts that don't change just because Gavin moved on. You can't just pretend the past didn't happen because it makes your new spouse uncomfortable. Gavin asks again a few weeks later, because apparently he thought Ryder might have changed their mind, and Ryder gives him the same answer. They even offer to explain the situation to Cherry directly, which is very mature and reasonable, but Gavin drops it. For a while, anyway. Then yesterday happens. Oh boy, yesterday. Gavin calls and tells Ryder that this is the last time he's going to ask, and the pictures need to come down or Cherry won't come to their home anymore. First of all, the audacity of giving your own mother an ultimatum about decorating her own house is wild. Second of all, won't come to their home anymore. Like that's some kind of devastating threat. Ma'am, you've been in this family for like a year after a whirlwind romance. You are not the main character here. Sit down. Ryder rightfully says that's ridiculous, but then Gavin drops an absolute bomb. The pictures are making Cherry jealous, and it's affecting the way she's treating Tommy. I need everyone to pause and really absorb this. A grown woman in her late 20s is jealous of photographs of her husband's ex, and is taking it out on a 4-year-old child, a literal preschooler, her stepson. because apparently Tommy mentioned a picture at grandma's house and Cherry threw a fit. This is where I go from thinking Cherry is just insecure to realizing she's actually being cruel. Being jealous of your partner's ex is one thing. It's not great, but it's human and can be worked through. Taking out that jealousy on an innocent child? Absolutely not. That's unacceptable on every level. Ryder is appalled, as they should be. Gavin says it's making his life difficult, and honestly, good. It should be difficult. Your wife is mistreating your 4-year-old son over pictures in someone else's house. That should make your life difficult because you should be addressing it immediately and protecting your child. Gavin brings this up around Ryder's daughter, the oldest, who told her younger sister, and both sisters agree that Cherry is being ridiculous. So we've got a family consensus here. Everyone except Gavin can see that this is unhinged behavior. Ryder tells Gavin straight up, if your wife is treating Tommy poorly because of some pictures in my home, then you need to think if this is the right person. And honestly, that's not being dramatic. That's being a protective grandparent. That's looking out for Tommy when his own father apparently can't see the red flags waving directly in his face. Obviously, Gavin disagrees because he's in too deep with this relationship he rushed into, and he's been hounding Ryder leading up to Thanksgiving. The audacity of continuing to pressure your own mother about this while your wife is being mean to your son is truly something. Ryder's husband is on the side of, we do not negotiate with terrorists, which is absolutely iconic, and I love that energy. But he also points out that Gavin and Cherry are married, and maybe they should pick their battles, which, okay, I can see the logic there. But also, this is a battle worth picking because it's about a child's well-being and about not enabling toxic, controlling behavior. Ryder is wondering if they're missing the forest for the trees, and the answer is no. No, you are not. The forest is the trees in this case. This is about Cherry being controlling and insecure and taking it out on a child, and Gavin enabling it instead of protecting his son. Then Ryder adds an edit clarifying that if there was actual abuse, they would have already called CPS. So we're not talking about physical harm here, but Cherry has decided that when Tommy is around, she's going to make herself scarce and not be involved with him anymore. She's literally giving a 4-year-old the silent treatment. A 4-year-old. That's her stepson. That's a child who didn't ask for any of this. Ryder has told Gavin this isn't acceptable, and he says he's working on it, which is code for I'm doing absolutely nothing, but I want you to stop bothering me about it. And Helena knows all of this, which good. She should know that her co-parenting partner's new wife is treating their son poorly. The second edit is where Ryder really comes through with the energy we love to see. They've decided they won't be removing anything, and if Cherry wants to continue her toddler-like temper tantrum, she's welcome to stay home alone on Thanksgiving. Yes, that's the correct response right there. If Cherry wants to grow up and realize she married a man with a child who existed before her and will continue to exist regardless of her feelings, she can come to Thanksgiving. But Ryder is planning to have a serious talk with Gavin. As they should. Someone needs to shake this man and remind him that his first responsibility is to his child, not to managing his new wife's insecurities. Then Ryder drops this gem. They and their husband are well off and readily help their kids financially. Gavin is welcome to cut them off over this, but they doubt that will happen because they'll react likewise. The implications here are chef's kiss. Basically, you want to play financial hardball with us while we're helping you out? Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for you. Something tells me Gavin is not going to risk his financial support over some pictures. And if he does, he's even dumber than the situation already makes him look. And the final edit is pure gold. Ryder counted the pictures while cleaning. There are max 5 pictures with Helena in them. 5 out of hundreds of pictures. 5. Cherry is throwing an absolute tantrum over 5 pictures out of literal hundreds, and Ryder is considering putting up more just to spite her. The little smirking emoji at the end? Iconic? Petty? Maybe? Deserved? Absolutely. Let's break down why Cherry's behavior is so problematic, because apparently Gavin needs it spelled out for him. When you marry someone who has a child from a previous relationship, you're not just marrying that person. You're becoming part of a family unit that existed before you. The child's other parent will always be part of the picture, pun absolutely intended, because they share a kid. That's just reality. Being insecure about your partner's ex is understandable to some degree, especially in a new relationship. But there are healthy ways to deal with those feelings, like therapy, honest communication with your partner, working on your self esteem, etc. What you don't do is demand that an older family member redecorate their personal home to erase evidence of your partner's past. That's controlling. That's unreasonable. That's the kind of behavior that shows someone is not emotionally mature enough to be in a blended family situation. And the fact that it's affecting how she treats Tommy is the biggest red flag of all. Kids pick up on when adults don't like them. Tommy is 4 years old. He's not stupid. He can tell when Sherry is being cold or distant or giving him the silent treatment. And that's going to affect him. That's going to make him feel unwanted in his own father's home. That's going to create issues with his self-esteem and his sense of security. Gavin needs to wake up and realize that he's failing his son right now. I don't care how much he loves Cherry or how difficult she's making his life when he doesn't cater to her demands. His child comes first. Period. That's parenting 101. You don't prioritize your new spouse's irrational jealousy over your child's emotional well-being. And the fact that Gavin married this woman after only knowing her for a few months while having a young child is looking more and more like a massive mistake. I'm not saying all quick marriages are doomed, but when someone shows you who they are, when they show you they're jealous, controlling, and willing to mistreat a child over their insecurities, you should probably believe them. Ryder's other kids can see it. Ryder can see it. Ryder's husband can see it. Presumably, Helena can see it. The only person who can't or won't see it is Gavin, and that's because he's chosen to bury his head in the sand rather than confront the fact that he might have made a really poor choice in getting married so quickly. The whole "we do not negotiate with terrorists" line from Ryder's husband is honestly the perfect way to frame this, because that's exactly what Sherry is doing. She's making unreasonable demands and threatening consequences if those demands aren't met. Take down these pictures or I won't come to your house anymore. That's manipulation. That's using consequences to control other people's behavior. And the correct response to that kind of manipulation is to call the bluff and set firm boundaries. If Ryder gives in on this, what's next? Cherry demands they can't talk about Helena in front of her. Can't invite Helena to events, even though she's Tommy's mother and they have a good relationship. Can't mention anything from Gavin's past that happened before Sherry was in the picture. Where does it end? It doesn't, because controlling people will always find something new to control once you've given in to their initial demands. By standing firm, Ryder is actually doing the right thing for everyone involved, including Cherie, even if Cherry can't see it. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable their toxic behavior. If everyone just caves to Cherry's unreasonable demands, she'll never have to confront her own insecurities or grow as a person. So she'll just continue being jealous and controlling and making everyone around her miserable. And let's talk about the Thanksgiving situation for a second. Gavin has been hounding Ryder leading up to Thanksgiving, which means he wants this resolved before the holiday so Cherry will come and everything will be comfortable for her. But why is everyone expected to bend over backwards to make Cherry comfortable when she's the one being unreasonable? Why is her comfort more important than Ryder's autonomy in their own home? Why is it more important than Tommy's well-being? The answer is, it's not. Sherry's comfort is not more important than those things. And it's perfectly reasonable for Ryder to say, if you're uncomfortable with 5 family photos out of hundreds in my home, that sounds like a you problem that you need to work on with a therapist, not a me problem that I need to solve by redecorating. Ryder's willingness to have a serious talk with Gavin is important, but honestly, I'm not sure how much it's going to help. Gavin has already shown that he's prioritizing Cherry's feelings over his own child's well-being. He's already chosen to hound his mother about pictures instead of addressing his wife's inappropriate behavior. He's already demonstrated really poor judgment by marrying someone he barely knew while having a young child to consider. But maybe, just maybe, if Ryder and their husband sit down with Gavin and lay out exactly how serious this situation is, he'll pull his head out of the sand. Maybe if they explain that they're concerned about Tommy and that Sherry's behavior is unacceptable and that they're not going to enable it, something will click. Maybe the threat of losing financial support will be a wake-up call. Or maybe Gavin is too far gone in this relationship to see reason, in which case Ryder has still done the right thing by setting boundaries and protecting Tommy as much as they can. The fact that both of Ryder's daughters agree that Sherry is being ridiculous is important too. This isn't just a generational disagreement where older parents don't understand modern relationships. Ryder's daughters are presumably close in age to Gavin and Sherry, and they can still recognize that this behavior is not okay. They're supporting their mother's decision to stand firm, which means Ryder has backup when Gavin tries to make this into a "you just don't like Sherry" thing. And honestly, at this point, I wouldn't blame Ryder if they didn't like Sherry. Sherry has shown herself to be jealous, insecure, controlling, and willing to mistreat a child. Those aren't likable qualities. You can be polite to someone and include them in family functions while still recognizing that they're not a great person. Ryder has already added photos of Cherry to their collection, which is more grace than Cherry deserves, given how she's acting. The pettiness of Ryder considering putting up more pictures of Helena is something I can absolutely get behind. Is it mature? No. Is it going to solve anything? Probably not. Is it hilarious and a tiny bit justified given Cherry's absolutely unhinged reaction to 5 photos? Yes. Yes, it is. Sometimes pettiness is the emotional release we need when dealing with unreasonable people. But in all seriousness, this situation is sad. It's sad for Tommy, who's caught in the middle of adult drama and dealing with a stepmother who resents his existence. It's sad for Helena, who by all accounts has been mature and cooperative, but now has to worry about how her son is being treated in his father's home. It's sad for Ryder, who just wants to display family photos and enjoy Thanksgiving without dealing with manufactured drama. It's even sad for Gavin, who's trapped in a relationship with someone who's showing some serious red flags, but he's too invested to see it clearly. The only person I don't feel particularly sad for is Cherry, because she's the one creating this entire problem. She's the one who needs to do some serious self-reflection and probably therapy to work through why she's so threatened by her husband's past that she can't handle seeing 5 photographs in someone else's house. She's the one who chose to marry a man with a child and then decided she didn't actually want to deal with the reality of what that means. So would Ryder be the asshole for not taking down the pictures? Absolutely not. Not even a little bit. Not even an alternate universe. Ryder is NTA, not the asshole in the biggest, most obvious way possible. Cherry is the asshole for making unreasonable demands about someone else's home, for being jealous of photographs, and most importantly, for mistreating a 4-year-old child because of her own insecurities. Gavin is also the asshole for enabling Cherry's behavior, for prioritizing her comfort over his son's well-being, for hounding his mother about something completely unreasonable, and for failing to protect Tommy from Cherry's coldness. Ryder, your instincts are correct on every level. Keep those pictures up. Have that serious talk with Gavin. Let Cherry stay home from Thanksgiving if she can't handle the existence of 5 photographs. Protect your grandson. Set boundaries. Don't negotiate with terrorists. And maybe, just maybe, Gavin will eventually realize what everyone else can already see, that he rushed into a marriage with someone who isn't equipped to handle being a stepmother, and that his first responsibility needs to be to his child, not to managing his wife's jealousy. In the meantime, enjoy your photo-filled home, have a wonderful Thanksgiving with the family members who aren't throwing toddler tantrums, and know that you're doing the right thing. Your house, your rules, your family history, your photos, end of story. And honestly, put up a few more pictures of Helena just for the chaos of it all. You've earned it.